Rebuilding a Stuart major beam engine. This is part 7. Making a new crankshaft and grouting the bricks gives a realistic look. During the painting of some engine parts, I talk about some practical and useful tips. In this one I'm going to make the crankshaft. It's a very simple job. I need a 7-inch long piece of silver steel. So I'm putting a larger piece of silver steel in the chuck. This is on the larger of my two lathes. For this parting off job I'm using a high-speed steel parting tool. So I've slowed the lathe down because if I go too fast the tool will blunt very quickly. This silver steel is a very hard material. My old Smart & Brown lathe, which you're looking at the moment, although you're not looking at very much of it, is a very good old machine. It's a model 1024 and it's very substantial, so parting off is no problem to it whatsoever. But it is quite noisy, especially as the belt slips, and the reason I have the belt slipping on the big lathe is if it does lock up, the belt slips and it doesn't break. What you're watching at the moment is me facing this piece of bar in the smaller of my two lathes, which is a Boxford AUD. A great old machine. It's a bit beaten up, but it really is good. As I have mentioned previously, this is a piece of silver steel and it's accurately ground to exactly 3/4 of an inch in diameter. Here I'm using a centre drill to make a centre hole in the end of the shaft, and the reason for this is purely decorative. I would presume that the full-size engine, if there was such a thing, would have a crankshaft about a foot in diameter, and these were generally turned on large lathes between centres. And also, from my days of building steam locomotives, I would always centre the axles. It just looks good. If you have a look at various full-size engines, you will see this quite a lot. But it is optional and not at all functional. What I used to do frequently though with the steam locomotives is I would centre drill the axle, then I would drill a small hole down the centre of the axle, and drill a hole at 90 degrees to this hole down the centre of the axle, exactly where the axle box was. This was quite a good way of lubricating the axle box, because the normal way to lubricate the axle box is to pour some oil into a little reservoir on top of the box. But in this reservoir there would be grit from the firebox. So by putting the oil in down the centre of the axle, it was always clean oil that flushed out the axle box. I did this on quite a few of my engines and the axle boxes lasted a long time. I've seen axle boxes wear out in a couple of seasons. I don't do it that way anymore though, because the last engine that I built, which is the small one that you may have seen running around my garden, I use ball racers just about everywhere on it, so I don't need to do this. After machining the new crankshaft to the required 7 inches in length and centre drilling it at each end, here's the finished product. One 7-inch long piece of silver steel ready to fit to the crank web. The first thing to do is clean out the crank web. I'm using cellulose thinners or lacquer thinners as you call it in the USA. I'm giving it a thorough clean. And then guess what? I'm going to use Loctite 603 to bond this shaft into the hole in the crank web. But before I actually do that and apply the Loctite, I'm just roughening up the end of the crankshaft with a piece of fine emery cloth. This acts as a key for the Loctite and makes a very firm joint. But I always use far too much Loctite 603 on components. I like to make sure that both surfaces are very evenly coated. I will probably end up pinning these two components for a bit of extra security. I've left the crankshaft protruding very slightly from the crank web. This just seems to be the full-size practice and it makes it look better. I will of course be painting this crank web, but only round the outside edge. In this clip I'm showing the removal of the panel pins from the piece of plywood for health and safety reasons. Now it's time for the grouting of the bricks. For this I'm using Tyfock model building mortar. Tyfock is a building system for children where you can build using real bricks and real cement. That's not strictly true, it's not real cement. As far as I know, it's a mixture of fine sand and sugar. And the idea of this is, after constructing a building using the original Tyfock bricks and playing with it for a while, you'll get bored with it. So instead of throwing it away, you just put it in a bucket of water, the water dissolves out the sugar, and the whole thing falls apart and the bricks can be reused. Quite ingenious, really. It's a very messy process, of course, and the little trowel that you get with the set is ideal for applying the grout, the cement. When all the gaps are filled, all you do is wipe it off the top surface, and it looks like this. You just wipe off the surplus grout with a damp cloth, but you do end up with some grains of sand stuck to the front of the brick, which can be removed when the main part of the grouting is solidified. And once the brick surface is 100% clean, I would then go over the whole thing with some polyurethane varnish to seal it. This is an extract from a video I did a while back, a live steam test of a large grasshopper beam engine, and this is built on a base actually using Typhock bricks, which are a bit bigger, but you can see the effect, and it's very pleasing and actually looks like the real thing, in a small way. I'm painting the beam currently. This is of course speeded up. I generally speed up the painting parts because it's very boring, and you will slip into a coma because I'm in danger of doing the same. This is Precision Paints LMS Red Crimson Lake. When you're painting models, it's very important not to get any runs or drips because they do look really bad. And on an item like this, it would be very difficult to rub the drips down with a piece of sandpaper later, because it's a complex shape. A few episodes ago, I had a really big moan about the state of the beam casting, the fact that the bosses, where the pins go through, are not in line at each side. Even if you get it right on one side, it's not going to be right on the other side. And after this comment, I got a really informative email from a viewer. I'll read out part of it. The pattern for the beam itself is in 2 halves down its length, and unfortunately the halves rarely line up, hence the offset from the bosses one side to the other. The centres of the bosses are not spaced as per drawings, probably due to casting shrinkage, so the builder has a choice. Either put the holes correct to each other, which keeps the engine dimensions mechanically correct, or put in the visual centre of the bosses and take a chance as to how well it will run. He then goes on to say that another problem with the casting, looking down the length of the beam, is that most of them are slightly banana-shaped. He continues, other problems include the sole plate being approximately 1/8 of an inch short down its length, which means that the cylinder is sat about a 1/16 off centre to its boss, and a discrepancy on the other side of about 1/16 of an inch, whereby the main bearing is not central to the 2 lugs on the cradle it sits in. Again, this is due to casting shrinkage. To add yet more misery for the machinist, they are also slightly bowed. I'd better put a quick disclaimer in here. These are not my thoughts, these are the thoughts of a viewer who took the time to send me an email. And in the case of this specific engine, I can't even be sure that these are Stuart castings. They could be cast from other Stuart castings. Some of them are good and some of them are not so good, but from my experience, Stuart castings are generally pretty good. Now I'm painting the connecting rod. These scallop parts of the connecting rod look really good when they're painted, and you will get paint all over the connecting rod. And if you wipe it off like this, it's not a really good idea, because you'll see that you've wiped off part of the red bit. So it's best to sort of just leave it really, and when the paint is dry, rub it off with a piece of emery cloth. That way you will get a cleaner edge. This ornate connecting rod is a really important part of a beam engine, and it's very, very visible. So take your time with it to make sure you get a good finish and you don't get any runs or drips on the red part. A few painting experts are probably thinking, well, he's not using any primer, what's going on? Well, the reason for that is I don't use any primer because I do find the primer comes off, even etched primer comes off. The paint doesn't just fall off, it's usually from some sort of physical damage. And then you end up with a big lump out of the paint, because the combination of primer and the top coat makes the paint coat thicker. Whereas if you rub this paint off, or damage it in any way, it's such a thin layer of paint, you can quickly get a piece of wet or dry paper, rub down the paint and touch it up with a paintbrush dipped in the same paint pot. From my experience of painting models, the best stuff to use is the 2-pack paint and spray it, but you need breathing apparatus and lots of gadgets, which I don't have. So I just carry on doing it this way, it seems to work for me. And on that note, I will say thanks for watching and I hope you found it useful.
Please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.